Welcome to Covenant Tribe Media. Again, I'm your host, Ashea Goldson, and today I'll be talking about, giving you five quick facts about this writing thing, including my personal journey. So the five quick facts that I want to talk about are ones that I think that every writer should internalize. It's really important that you do for your own peace of mind. And let's get right on into it. So I would say number one, my first quick fact is that everyone has their own start story, right? Where you're starting out from. I come across a lot of people who ask me how I got started in writing, right? What drew me to writing? What happened? What motivated me to write in the first place? Now, there's a long and a short answer to that. Okay. And I'm going to begin at the beginning, right? So for me, the truth is that I've been writing my entire life, right? Even when I didn't know that I was writing for real. Uh, Before I could even write, um, I was writing in my head. I was that kid, right? I was an only child, an introvert. I know now, I did not know that then. With an overly active imagination, right? Always living inside my head, writing inside my head, building things inside my head. Um, Although I didn't realize it then, of course. Even before I could read, I was creating stories inside my head. But once I learned to read and realized how big stories could become, I could not be stopped. It was the most fun for me. So I not only devoured the stories from books, which was one of my absolute favorite things to do, still is, by the way, but I was able to then write a story and paste pictures, cut out pictures from magazines and add pictures to my story. Um, and I love that. That was just a fun thing to do. But I don't remember knowing that I was writing books, that I was writing books, even though I was, right? In a sense. In my mind, I was just being me. I was just having fun. It was just a great thing to do. And looking back on it, it seems weird, but I was totally comfortable with ongoing stories or scenarios going on inside my head, right? And I loved putting them down on paper. Sometimes they showed up on paper, sometimes they showed up in games, right? Even when cousins would come over and visit and things like that, the scenarios would play out in our make believe, in our in the games that we played, right? And so we all loved it. We were just having fun. Um, it never occurred to me, it didn't dawn on me at that time that I was a writer, I would be a writer, anything like that. It was just doing what was fun, just being a kid. By middle school, though, one of my teachers, sadly, whose name I don't remember, uh, just kind of told me one day that since I write so well, because I guess it was evident in my assignments, from my assignments, since I write so well, then maybe I should be a journalist. And being a kid and not knowing the difference and not knowing any thing different, I took a hold of that word and I didn't let it go for till years down the line. I took a hold of that word. I was so excited to have a title or career goal attached to something I was passionate about. So I was enjoying that writing. And so I took the word journalist, I took the journalism piece and I attached myself to it, right? For better or for worse. Not knowing at this time that journalism was not exactly the kind of writing that I preferred. But again, I was young, so I did all kinds of writing, and I wasn't um, privy to the information that there were different paths to go down when you were writing. And so I went down the journalism road, the journalism path, because that was all I knew to do. But that's another story for another day, I guess. So actually, just fast forwarding to um, preparing for a career. Um, I think it was, so I went to college, of course, majored in journalism, communications, mass communications, with my specialty was journalism, print journalism. And so during that time, of course, and majoring in communications, I had all kinds of classes. I later realized, later down the line in, I would say mid-college career, I realized that I'd majored in the wrong thing, that perhaps I had majored in the wrong thing, maybe had gone to the wrong college. Ironically enough, the college that I attended, Fordham University in New York, which is an excellent college for journalism, of course. Ironically enough, I could have, had I gone to their Lincoln Center campus, which had a similar program, a similar communications program, but it was more artsy, definitely way more artsy. It probably would have been a much better experience for me. But that's all behind us now. Um, by the time I realized that, kind of from visiting the Lincoln Center canvas on several occasions and th with things that I needed to do at that other campus, I had a choice. As a junior, did I want to transfer to that campus, and which would mean that I would lose probably at least a year, if not a year and a half worth of credits, because again, the programs were similar, they weren't parallel. And so because of the artsiness and the that side of things that I didn't, those classes that I did not take, I would have to take those. And so I decided, I made a choice, a decision not to do that, because at that point I had a family, I had a husband, I had a daughter, and I just wanted to move forward in my education, so that I could move forward with, employment. So I chose not to transfer, even though I figured at that point it would have been a better program for me. So fast forward to getting out of school. My first actual job, my first employment outside of school, following this career path, was at a popular textbook company in Manhattan, and I was a production assistant. Not exactly my dream job, but I was grateful. I was grateful for the job. I don't know that I understood what had gone wrong. Um, During this time, somewhere along the line between college and before I got my first job. If you had known me during my college years, um, if you had seen me, you would have known me to be one to always carry around a notebook full of my writings. Always, no matter where I went, no matter what I was doing, I'd be carrying a bag with my writings in it. And so this is pre-laptop age. So I didn't have a laptop, but I did always carry a notebook with my writings. I'd carry my latest manuscript. Always in my mind, I was a writer at this point. And so by the time I graduated and started working at that company, by that time, I had lost all of I guess I was burned out. It had kind of taken, the college experience had honestly taken away a lot of that creativity um, from me. And so I was no longer the person carrying my manuscript around with me, my writings around with my notebooks around with me. I was no longer that person. Um, and so I stayed with the job for a little while, not a long time. I knew that I didn't like the job. I knew that I didn't know I didn't have a plan, I would say. Um, but I knew that I didn't like the job, at the production assistant job. It was always deadlines. It was always a rush. Um, there were too many supervisors, too many people to answer to. Everything was due yesterday. Um, there were always messages to bring. There were always small tasks to do, typing, proofreading. copies. There were always tasks to be done. Um, and it wasn't that I cared or didn't care for the tasks. It was, I think, the big picture. It just the tasks were not really for me. Um, I did them. I did them. Uh, and occasionally I would have to have vague correspondence with authors of some of these textbooks. And I remember being more drawn to their lives and experiences than the lives and experiences of the supervisors who I was surrounded with, right? The supervisors that were trapped in cubicles, in their cubicles or standard offices, right? They just seemed like they were filled with so much stress. And I didn't like it. And I realized one day, I said to myself, Ashia, this is not the life for you. This is not the life you want. Like I looked at my managers, I looked at the various supervisors who were over me, and I wondered, did I really ever want to move up to their level? Did I want their jobs at all? Not at all. There was nothing at all that vaguely resembled the life that I wanted. There was nothing I was interested in. There was no joy for me here. I realized that. And so I stayed there for a short while. Um, and, I went through the motions. I could honestly say I was going through the motions. I was actually fired from that job. I was actually fired from that job. And, I can't say I wasn't upset about it, but it's like something inside me knew that it wasn't the place for me, wasn't the path for me. And so in a sense, I guess I was grateful. So I was relieved from that position. And at that point, um, that's when I ended up, that's how I ended up in education. I left that position and shortly after that, I ended up in a position in a teaching in a private school. And although that was supposed to be temporary, at least I thought, I immediately realized that that was a better fit. It was definitely a better fit because there was joy there. I had joy there. My daughter was able to attend the school tuition free. I was able to use my strengths in reading and writing. And I was also able to be creative in my classroom. So I'd found my joy at that point. And I've been literally teaching ever since. So I didn't know it at first, but I imagined that that was God's way of getting me into education. And so I was so excited that my daughter was attending this school and I was actually working with kids because I always loved kids. That was definitely one of my strengths from the beginning. Um, and so that started me on my path. Now, someone would say, okay, so how did me being in education um, how did me being in education actually translate to how did that actually translate to how did that actually translate to the writing? Well, it didn't directly. So I taught for many years and I got lost in life, right? In the tasks of life and the stress of life, all of the things. And again, I was no longer that person who carried around writings, who carried around papers, my papers, who wrote poetry, who read novels, who read literature. I wasn't that person at that time. I was, however, that person who, I read for work, I read for business, I read for advancement. I did academic reading um, for my job, right? For my work, but not for joy. I'd lost that part of me, to be honest. And I didn't even realize that I had. It wasn't until years later, down the line, long after I'd moved to Atlanta, I was sitting with a coworker and good friend of mine at the time. And we were very close during this time. And she was reading a local newspaper and she mentioned that there was a book signing that was going to be happening in the area. that an author was doing a book signing. And that was the moment when it all came flooding back. That was the moment when it all came flooding back because it came back to me. It was as if I'd had amnesia and it all came flooding back, that I was a writer. And so I'm sitting there looking at my friend and I'm telling her, no, I'm a writer. I'm a writer, right? Because it 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 was like it's just her reading about the book signing, it had activated something in me. And I'm sitting there telling her I'm a writer. And she was shocked. So she was looking at me as if I might as well had said, I'm an astronaut. I'm a brain surgeon, right? She looked at me like I was losing it, like I was out of my mind, but I was so serious because inside of me, it resonated with me. That book signing, that little article, short article about that author who was having that book signing, that resonated with me so much that it was at that point that I realized I had lost myself. That was when God had showed me, hey, Ashea, this is supposed to be you. Because I felt it. I felt it so strongly inside of myself. Somewhere along the line, somewhere along the way, somewhere throughout the years, I'd stopped carrying that notebook. I'd stopped carrying my writings. I stopped carrying my manuscripts. I stopped dreaming of writing. I'd stopped reading for pleasure. I only read for business, for work. I'd stopped being myself. I had given up the writing dream. So at this point, I had to repent. I repented to God and I promised God that if He'd help me get back to myself, to my writing, to my purpose, because it was like I understood it immediately, I would dedicate it to Him. And at that point, I started seeking out opportunities, groups, individuals, anything, books that would get me back on track. Okay. So that's the story of my I guess my beginnings, because that's my start story. So again, everyone has their own start story. Don't discount yours. Do not discount your story. Everybody has their own story. Number two, my next quick fact. All of your journey is valuable, right? All of your journey is valuable. And so basically, even in my story as I was telling, although it wasn't a smooth story of just, a simple um, A to B type situation, all of my journey is valuable, right? I've learned so much from my life and my experiences, and I'm able to put those things into the things that I write. Right. So all of your journey is valuable. There's value in everything that you've learned, everything that you've done. Um, Number three, my third quick fact is that no matter how much time has passed, no matter how many setbacks, no matter the hiatuses, God has not changed his mind about you. You're still a writer. If you're a writer, you're still a writer. If he's called you to write, you are still that. No matter how many breaks you've taken, why, what happened in between, at what point you officially started, at what point you were published, none of that matters. Um, None of that matters. Okay. So, yes. So don't worry about the time. Don't worry about the time that's passed. Once you realize that you should be writing, just start writing. Okay. There's no designated point when it ends. Okay. Just keep writing or just start writing. Number four, my number four quick fact. God will open doors for you. Opportunities started to present themselves to me once I repented, once I realized what my purpose was and that I had gone so far away from it. Opportunities just started presenting themselves everywhere. It seemed as if everywhere I looked, there was a writing workshop, there was a book signing, there was a a book group or a writers group starting. There were all kinds of things when I opened my eyes, when my eyes were open, right? Because before I was in darkness. And once I realized this is my purpose, this is what I'm supposed to be seeking, and I started to seek, right? And I found everything that I needed, right? I prayed, I asked God for at least a writing partner. I got a writers group, right? Phenomenal, very dynamic writers group, right? that I was able to write with and work with for years. Really, it was definitely one of the most influential experiences of my writing career during that time. Many of the writers that I was writing with in that group are published authors, multi-published, best-selling authors to this day. So again, God will open doors for you. And number five, last but not least, it's never too late. So life has its twists and turns. Some people don't realize their purpose even until later in life. Some people like me start off writing, then lose themselves in the busyness of life. Some people take a hiatus from writing for whatever reason, and I am absolutely 57 years old. And at 57, just released my last novel last spring. I am working on my next novel, which is set to be released this summer. This summer, and I'm also shopping my a screenplay as well. But I did take a hiatus, quite a hiatus, as I had returned to school to get my master's degree and had was working my way up in secondary education. So again, it's never too late, right? Don't think that there's an age, there's a number, it's too late for you. It's never ever too late. All right. And so those are the five quick facts that I have to encourage you that what God has for you is for you, and it is never, ever, ever too late. Thank you so much for listening, and please join us again next time. Bye.